This is from A New Pair of Glasses by Chuck C. He was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. This book has been compiled from his talks and whatnot, and they put it together, I believe, after he died. I buried a few people. I think I told you I had 2 this week. Monday and Tuesday I had funerals. A few months ago, I was asked to give a little eulogy for a 16-year-old girl who had taken an overdose of cocaine. That's the in thing down in my country now, cocaine. And she died. I got out there to the place, the cemetery. There was no chapel. It was just a graveside service, and that whole hill was covered with kids. I don't know how many, just a whole parcel of kids, teenagers on that hill. And I said to myself, this can't just be a regular deal. I've got to talk to these kids. And I talked first for a little bit with the parents and with a few older people that were there. And I told them that I didn't believe in death and why, and then I started talking to the kids. I told them I had great empathy because I too had been born into a society that I couldn't swallow, I couldn't integrate myself into. I had to find a way to be comfortable because I was not comfortable in the society in which I had to move. And when I was 19, I found a way to get comfortable in that society, and for the next 15 years I used this chemical for an answer. It remained an answer for the first 15 years, but after 15 years my answer turned on me and became the problem. The next 10 years made it necessary for me to find the right answer, and I did. Then I told these kids that if they could just come to see that, there was an answer that stayed with us. I said, when you're behind the acid, you've got all the answers, but when the acid's gone, you ain't got none. The answer's gone too. You see? But there is an answer that stays with you, and it's so much better than any chemical that you can put in your body, that then you can sing about your business, the business of living. And you don't have to repeat a dosage of chemicals. And if you decide that you want to find this answer and make an effort, you can find it. There are so many people that'll help you. And if you do this, maybe this death will be justified. Her mother called me the early part of the week, the first time since I had been there, and she said that there was quite a movement amongst the teachers and amongst the students to find an answer to replace this stuff. She told me about some guy that had thrown his house open to kids in Laguna Beach, and they wanted me to go down there last Friday. But isn't that a beautiful thing? That they might now be looking for something that might be taking the place of this chemical deal? I want to close with this little story. Before Alcoholics Anonymous was born, there was a chap by the name of Roland, and Roland was an alkie. Roland was doctoring with Carl Jung, who might possibly be the greatest psychological mind that the world has produced so far. And if I was learned, that would be a good opinion, but I'm not. To me, he was tops. He was the same vintage as Freud and Adler, but it seems that Jung had a personal answer. He had a living answer that maybe the others didn't, and Roland was doctoring with him, and every time he came back to him, he was worse. He finally came back, and the doctor told him, medical science has done everything in its power for you, and it can do no more. Psychiatry has done everything in its power for you, and it can do no more. And now it's my duty to tell you that your only hope is to find a spiritual experience that might save you. It's your only chance. This was some little time before Alcoholics Anonymous was born. Eventually Ebby called on Bill, and eventually Bill heard the pronouncement that we've talked about already, that he might have 6 more months to live, and then his wife would have to either lock him up or bury him. And he called out, God, if there is a God, reveal yourself to me now. And something happened, and he got sober. And he shared this thing pretty well until he died. Never had to drink anymore. Bill and Dr. Bob and some of the rest of them worked out this formula and proved that it worked if you and I work it, and put it in the book Alcoholics Anonymous for us. Then Bill heard about Roland and what Dr. Jung had told him about spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience being his only chance. So Bill wrote to Dr. Carl Jung in Zurich, Switzerland, and asked him how he had known enough about alcoholism to so counsel Roland as he had done. And Dr. Jung wrote back, and he told Bill, in essence, that he had always known that the alcoholic's problem was in his search for unity. His search for unity, and he couldn't find it. He even quoted one of my favorite verses. As the hart panteth after the water brook, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. He'd always known that this was the alcoholic's problem, his attempt to find unity with the life around him and with the God that made him. And when he found the bottle, it seemed to be the missing ingredient. It seemed to let him live a little bit more comfortably with himself and in the society around him. He had found chemical unity, and it did a pretty good job for him until it became the problem that only a spiritual answer could solve. Now that's a beautiful thing, and most of us agree with that. Now here's what happened, and this just curls my hair. This is fantastic. It's a beautiful thing to me. Roland, having heard this, affiliated himself with the Oxford movement and got sober. Then he ran into Ebby, and he got Ebby into the Oxford movement, and Ebby got sober. And Ebby called on Bill, and Bill got sober. And so the finger of God. And, oh, this is so beautiful. In our entire history, the finger of God is so evident all the way through. From Dr. Carl Jung to Roland to Ebby to Bill, Bill to Dr. Bob, and Bill to us. What a beautiful thing it is, and how fortunate we are. I believe this is to be the most fortunate segment of humanity, of God's kids. Because you see, we have to find an answer lest we die. We come here not looking for God, or to get our wives back, or to get the love of our kids back. In many cases, like my own, we are not even looking for health, but just a way to live one day at a time without drinking, and so that we might rub out a little of the record. And we find that the formula for sobriety and the formula for the good life and the formula of God is all the same. And we find an answer that makes the chemical unnecessary. And it's an answer that doesn't just stay in the meeting. When we leave, it goes with us, and we're never alone anymore. How fortunate can a man be?